I was in the middle of handling an international crisis, but I was especially pleased to see the special counsel make clear the stark differences between this case and Donald Trump. As the special counsel wrote, and I quote, "Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear." And by the way, this is a Republican counsel. Most notably, after given multiple chances, this is the continuation of the quote, he returned classified documents and avoided prosecution. Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. This is the continuing quote. According to the indictment, he has not only refused to return documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives, the Department of Justice, consented to a search of multiple locations, including his homes, and sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation. That's the distinction, among others. The bottom line is the special counsel in my case decided against moving forward with any charges, and this matter is now closed.
He sounds pretty sharp to me there. That is a speech that the president gave today to the Democrats in Congress, and that is an important point that we must remember as I go through this. My name is Suri Crowe, and you are watching the MeidasTouch Network. All right, so let's get to it. Robert Hur, who is a Trump appointee and the special counsel on the Biden documents case, found no criminal wrongdoing. This released in a report that came out on Thursday by President Biden in the year-long investigation that he oversaw. President Biden, according to this report, and according to the White House, sat down with the special counsel for a 5-hour voluntary interview in early October. And what's important to note about this was within 48 hours of that international crisis in Israel, within days or even maybe hours of the Hamas attack. But remarkably, astonishingly, Hur, who found no cause to indict President Biden at any point, even outside of the DOJ's policy of not indicting a sitting president. In other words, according to the special counsel's report, even were Biden not a sitting president, they would not go ahead and indict him. As we're seeing now, ex-President Trump is being pursued in multiple criminal cases because he's no longer the sitting president. So that is also an important point to make. So Hur, despite saying we found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing to indict President Biden now or even after he's out of office, went on to include completely extraneous and irrelevant information, basically Hur's own opinion, with his comments criticizing President Biden's alleged memory. Hur wrote in this report, Joe Biden's memory was significantly limited in interviews they conducted with him in 2023. Because of that, special counsel Robert Hur goes on to say, quote, "It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Biden is someone for whom many jurors will want to identify with." Hur also included this bizarre remark, quote, "He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died." Okay, so first of all, the White House is disputing that account that Robert Hur included in his report. President Biden talks about his son Beau all of the time, and there is something called the fog of grief that sort of blocks things out, but I guarantee you, he knows the day and hour when he lost his son Beau. But even so, how the president's memory on the date of his son's death has any relevance to a classified documents case is beyond me. I'm not an attorney, but I am not alone in my assessment. Like, how does that even fit in to the special counsel's investigation of where Joe Biden was keeping classified documents, yes or no?
Attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of Every Memorial Day, we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away.
And several former federal prosecutors were quick to jump on her for what they referred to as a political hit on President Biden. Here is New York Congressman and former federal prosecutor Daniel Goldman.
Because he thinks Joe Biden is too old and feeble, essentially, for him to prosecute without the jury finding him sympathetic. What's your reaction?
I don't buy that that's a reason why he didn't prosecute. That's completely extraneous and unnecessary, delivered by a Republican trying to make a political statement that has no place in this special counsel's report. The bottom line is that President Biden cooperated fully. As soon as he and his team identified that there were classified documents, he turned them over. He allowed the FBI to search every room in his house. He fully, completely cooperated, and there just simply wasn't evidence that he knowingly and intentionally held classified information with any intent to distribute it. Juxtapose that to Donald Trump, who went to such great lengths to obstruct the FBI's, first the archives, then the FBI, that he was charged with obstruction of justice, which demonstrates a clear knowledge and intent. And that's why he's charged with his indictment down in Florida and why President Biden has been exonerated today.
Andrew Weissman, the former chief counsel for the FBI, as well as a special counsel to the Robert Mueller report and investigation, pounced on Hur's comments. Listen to him here.
Yet a person goes out and gives their opinion with adjectives and adverbs about what they think. Entirely inappropriate. That is not the role of the Department of Justice. I don't even understand why you would engage in, just as a prosecutorial matter, your memory today is irrelevant. Whether I find you in an interview to have forgotten things, certainly to say, what do you remember about certain documents in your house, 4 or 5 years ago, I would understand that you might not remember that. To talk about your memory today, irrelevant. It is gratuitous. And it is also exactly what you're not supposed to do, which is putting your thumb on the scale that could have political repercussions. Your decision is essentially, to the vernacular in the Department of Justice, is put up or shut up. You either decide to go forward, that there is proof here, or you don't say anything at all with respect to your sort of opinions about the case.
I first toured the Justice Department. I wrote the special counsel regulations that give this special counsel, Robert Hur, his power. And at the end of it, we actually said that there shouldn't be a public report in general, that there shouldn't be a kind of list of adjectives, to use Andrew's phrase, that would occur. Now, we certainly had those public reports even, in the intervening times, but I'm not aware of anything quite like this, in which you've got a special counsel going after the sitting president for being too old and having a faulty memory. That is, he's come up with a clever way to get those adjectives in there by saying, well, if I brought this case to trial, this is what I would face from a jury. But as Andrew says, totally gratuitous. I mean, after all, earlier in the report, it says Biden had all sorts of innocent explanations for his behavior. So it just doesn't feel like that's doing the work. And it feels like a, too clever move by the special counsel to try and take some swipes at a sitting president. And it doesn't sit well with me at all. And I do think that it, is very much in tension with the Justice Department guidelines on special counsels. And I'm a bit surprised, frankly, that, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, evidently didn't, police those regulations at all.
Biden's own personal attorneys also fired back, disputing Hur's assessment, writing, quote, "We do not believe that the report's treatment of President Biden's memory is accurate or appropriate. The report uses highly prejudicial language to describe a commonplace occurrence among witnesses, a lack of year-old events." Andrew Weissman compared what Robert Hur did here to the personal opinion that former FBI Director James Comey offered about then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton just days before the 2016 election and after the FBI exonerated her.
I have 2 words for you, James Comey. So what he did was stating the obvious, which was there was no criminal case against Hillary Clinton, that there was just to me, there was never going to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt in that case. And that was what was found. And the appropriate thing to do there is to just say, we're declining. There is insufficient proof. It is not a time to have a press conference to state, oh, by the way, let me give you my personal views.
So to wrap it up, Special Counsel Robert Hur, a Republican and a Trump appointee, found zero wrongdoing of criminal intent in a year-long investigation of President Biden regarding those documents. And he did, to be fair, compare this case to Trump's document case, which is still ongoing. We know this through Special Counsel Jack Smith's office. Hur wrote in the report, quote, most notably, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, I believe it was actually more than a year. That's me, Suri, saying that. But he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then lie about it. In contrast, Hur goes on to say, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the DOJ, consented to the search of multiple locations, including Biden's various homes, sat for a voluntary interview. Again, I must interject, this was during a massive international crisis, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation. All right there. So, Tommy Vitor, who was one of President Obama's former staffers, tweeted this. Robert Hur clearly decided to go down the Jim Comey path of filling his report absolving Biden of criminal activity with ad hominem attacks, like calling him, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory. Not remotely subtle, just a right-wing hit job from within Biden's DOJ. And that, I believe, is an important point to also take note of. The right-wing Macedonians are always going on about the weaponized Biden DOJ. But this special counsel went on a rant about President Biden's alleged memory, and another special counsel, both Republicans, indicts the president's son, Hunter. So it would appear that the Merrick Garland-led DOJ is not only not weaponized against Republicans, but is in fact going out of its way to demonstrate that there is absolutely no favor handed out to Joe Biden, complete with this personal attack that came out in Robert Hur's report today about the president, his memory, and mentioning his son Beau's death. So there you have it, folks. That's the latest in terms of exonerating President Biden from any wrongdoing in the classified documents case. My name is Suri Crowe. You are watching the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope to see you back here very soon. Peace.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.